On one side, there's the conviction that loving your neighbor means stepping into the public sphere, that you use your vote and you use your influence to protect freedom and to defend the vulnerable. And then there's the other side, which is this warning that the moment the church aligns itself too closely with political power, it risks losing its prophetic voice and trading that picture that Jesus gives us of self-giving love for a different kind of power, a more coercive power, a power of the state.
Take it easy. Take it easy.
All right, everybody, welcome in to another episode of The Easy Approach. As always, I am your host, Nate, and as always, I am joined by my two co-hosts here, Canaan and Tony.
Glad
Say
to be
hello,
here.
fellas.
Hello, hello.
Hello, hello.
This is our third live stream.
It sure is.
We were in here just a handful of weeks ago, recording like a head-to-head or a double-header of episodes, and our first ever live stream worked out some technical kinks, but we're back, and maybe even kinkless this time.
I was going to say, we're back with more technical kinks this week.
We're less kinky than we've ever been.
That's maybe not.
Maybe strike that from the record.
It's live stream.
This is what you
Strike
get
it
from a
back.
live show.
It's live stream. Oh no, there's no striking from the record anymore. So speaking of kinks, that may have been one. So yeah, we're going to be tackling this should be a fun one. We're
Fun
tackling
is an interesting word. Yes.
Yeah, fun is an interesting word. Yeah, I think we're stepping into a tension in this episode that is like as old as faith itself.
Yeah.
And here's the fundamental question: how should followers of Jesus relate to the power of the state? So this is a question about government. This is a question of Christian nationalism is the word that floats around in pop culture today. For 2,000 years, I mean, followers of Jesus, you found themselves pulled between two very, very powerful sides, or even powerful stories, powerful narratives. And just to give us the broad, like, welcome to the welcome to the Black Parade. Like, here's the scenario here. On one side, there's the conviction that loving your neighbor means stepping into the public sphere. That you use your vote and you use your influence and you use, you contribute towards civic law to protect freedom and to defend the vulnerable and to preserve a nation's moral foundation. And then there's the other side, which is this warning that the moment the church aligns itself too closely with political power, and this is a warning that we hear from ages past again and again, the church, if it does that, it risks losing its prophetic voice. It risks ceasing to be the voice of God to the world and trading that picture that Jesus gives us of self-giving love of the cross for a different kind of power, right? A more coercive power, a power of the state. So today, I mean, part of me wants to say it's reached a boiling point. And in some ways that it has, but by no means is this an old question. By no means is this the first boiling point. We're just at this place where we're under a term that everyone's talking about, but very few people agree on. Christian nationalism. That's the word.
Yeah.
So the fundamental question that we are exploring today, fellas, is it a faithful effort to steward a nation's heritage? Or is it a dangerous confusion of the kingdom of God and mixing that up with human empire? So here's what we're doing. Each of us has brought to the table something. Maybe it is a quote. Maybe it is a sound bite. Maybe it's a video clip. Maybe it is just an image. I don't know what these other fellas brought, but each of us brought something that contributes to the conversation. And I do want to be clear. I want to be very clear. Just because we brought it doesn't mean we agree or disagree with it. We just brought it. And then the whole idea here is when you're up, you share the thing that you brought, and the other two are blind reacting to it. That is going to be the vehicle by which we drive this conversation forward. So, Canaan, Tony, would either of you gentlemen like to go first? Because I just talked for a while.
Yeah.
So I feel like I need a little vocal break.
I'm also very interested, maybe to extend this prelude a little bit more. But Canaan, you said that you were looking into it a lot, and I agree with you that defining our terms is always a good idea. And so I'm curious, what definition did you really come to in some of your quick research, Canaan?
Sure. So my quick research was Gemini, by the way. But I had Gemini define it for me, and then I read it multiple times, and I thought to myself, that seems biased. And so I asked it to give me a summary of the different realms of thought around Christian nationalism and what that term really means. But here's the unbiased as you can get Gemini take on the word or the term Christian nationalism. And you guys, I'd like to hear whether you disagree or agree with this and what your own personal definition carries here. But it says Christian nationalism is a political ideology and cultural framework that advocates for the explicit integration of Christian identity, values, and principles into a nation's governance, public policy, and national identity. At its core, it asserts that a nation's history, laws, and civic life are uniquely tied to Christianity, and that the state should preserve and privilege this religious heritage.
Okay. Yeah, there's a lot of words there. Some
there.
of them resonate with me, and some of them don't resonate with me.
Gut reaction. Which ones do and which don't?
Oh, geez. The fact that this nation was founded with Christianity in mind
Yeah,
is
I
pretty
think that's a big
non-debatable.
topic.
However,
It's debated still, though.
it is still debated. Yeah, but I think if you're a student of history, it's very, very difficult to stand by the idea that the people who founded this nation to put forth the idea that they were not believers in Jesus Christ and holders of Judeo-Christian values. So there's that. But part of that little package you read, Canaan, was the idea that it should this nation should uniquely privilege that kind of originating religion, like foundational religion. And I don't know that I care to be uniquely privileged as a follower of Jesus. I feel like followers of Jesus, when uniquely privileged in the past, that it hasn't gone super well. Now, I don't want to just I hesitate to just dive in here because there's like this massive array of things that we could talk about at this point. But I guess I'll leave it at my initial reaction is some of that resonates, some of it doesn't. And I'm looking forward to kind of breaking apart some different moving parts here as we go further.
Well, what's your guys been? What's your understanding of Christian nationalism been? Like when people said that word in the past, prior to your research today, or before this, what was your functioning definition in your head, or did you not have one?
For me, I definitely did not have one, especially growing up in the church. But I tell you what I did have, right? There was a Christian flag on one side of the stage, and there was an American flag on the other side of the stage. And just the idea of being a good American and the concept of American exceptionalism, right? That's what we were referring to a second ago, Nate. It really was interwoven a lot with what I was raised on. And it's sticky. It's very sticky because, just like we had a conversation on good intentions and we like to say the idiom of the road to hell is paved with good intentions, right? But yeah, I think it's very prevalent. I think the idea of being a good American, supporting the American government, the American way of life, American capitalism, American this, American that, is for a lot of our society, it goes hand in hand with modern Christianity. And the question is that a good thing for Christians? Or is that maybe not the best thing for Christians?
Nate, what's your take? Your definition prior to this this discussion of Christian
I just want to start
nationalism.
throwing out the little things we've brought
We can.
because
Yeah,
I'm
cool with that.
trying to parse through it. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like even just trying to give a definition of it opens up so many individual cans of worms
Yeah.
that I'm like, how in the world do I? I was like, man, I don't want to talk about this anymore. Cancel the podcast. I'm out. That's it. I don't want to talk about this anymore. No, I mean,
That
okay,
or we're going to get canceled. So
right,
either
yeah.
one of those two.
Yeah, well, look. I mean, both of the things I brought. And I don't know if we'll get to both of them. Both of the things I brought are clips that I found on YouTube that I thought were good drivers of conversation, and they very much disagree with each other. These two clips.
All right.
Again, I don't know if we'll get to them or not, but I guess I'll put it like this before we start bringing what we brought. Canaan, your question was, what was your functioning definition of Christian nationalism prior to coming into this conversation or prepping for it or whatever else? I think I had this category in my head for it as something like a Christian that is patriotic and a Christian that believes in supporting their nation and is proud to be a whatever, and in the case of the U.S., proud to be an American, and a Christian that believes in contributing to the nation and supporting the nation. And there's some blurry line there in terms of what supporting the nation means and looks like. Because at what point? Like, there's clearly some point where supporting the nation becomes of higher priority to you, and your allegiance becomes more highly invested in the nation rather than your identity as a follower of Jesus. So it's that
Yes.
blurry line there that I think that's where all of the difficulty lies and all the nuance lies. Because I think all Christians believe that there is a line where you care too much about the good of your nation and you don't care enough about your allegiance to Jesus and your identity as a follower of Jesus. But where is that line? Is that line, I don't get involved whatsoever. I don't vote. I don't talk about politics. I don't contribute to my community. Like, is that the line? Or is it, I will do anything short of disobeying the words of Christ for the sake of my nation? Or historically, even beyond that line, right? And historically, there are many cases in which a Christian nation has mandated things that I would say are very much out of line with the words of Christ. So that's where all the difficulty is. And Canaan, why don't you answer your own question in terms of how you preconceived this before you asked our AI overlord?
Yeah. Well, I'll give you like where I'm at personally, and the underlying question behind all of it for me is, and I hadn't answered this question prior to even this podcast. Like, I had some thoughts about it, but I'm like, the most I've done is think about it a little bit. You know what I mean? I vote. I'm like, I feel like it's a responsible thing to do as like a citizen of this country or whatever.
Yeah.
But for a while, I'm like, how involved should I be in politics? That's the question for me. How involved should I be in politics? Should I care to a great degree, or should I realize this is like mostly out of my control?
Yeah.
And I shouldn't put that much stock or care into it. That's been my question. How much should I care? So I would say, in terms of a personal working definition, I don't really even know what I thought. I think my thought process around the term Christian nationalism was people, I'll simplify it, people who care a whole lot about politics and Christianity and they're both highly involved in both. That's like my view of Christian nationalism. Like, they're coming mostly from a political frame, but backed with a religious foundation, you know what I mean? Or a Christian foundation, if that makes sense. I don't think I had a great functioning definition for it,
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yep. Fair. Okay. With all that gobbledygook out of the way, show me the money. Show me the controversial things that you want to throw into this boiling pot. No pun intended. Into this boiling pot of a conversation. would one of you like to go first, or you could default and you can let me go first?
You should go first.
You want me to go first?
Yeah, give it a shot. Throw one out
I'll
there.
go first. I'll go first.
Letting you go.
I'll go first. I got a fiery first option for us here, fellas. Here we go. This is Pastor Lauren Livingston.
I was gonna say, is it Bill Gates? I think that's
That is
Bill
not
Gates.
Bill Gates. That is not Bill Gates preaching at a church. No. This is Pastor Lauren Livingston, and I don't know if I can. I guess I can just go for it here. Let me know if you can't hear it.
Of you bring politics into the church. You think that politics is spiritual stuff. Politics is of this world. You think it's your duty to be political about this, that, and the other. No, your duty is to serve the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, body, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. Don't be talking to me about my spiritual responsibility to vote. I don't have a spiritual responsibility to vote. I have a civic privilege. Don't be telling me that voting is spiritual.
All right, there it is. So I have thoughts, but y'all are up now.
Definitely incendiary.
Incendiary.
So
yeah.
I'll just start with this, my response to that. So personally, like I said, I was raised in a church that I didn't really understand the idea of Christian nationalism. Like there was no separation, there was no divorce, there was no dichotomy there. They went hand in hand. And another aspect of that for me was I was raised in politics. Absolutely, 100%. And so I can easily raise my hand and say that before I was 20, I was far more in tune with what was going on politically in this government than I think 99% of other people my age. Like that's just the history that I come from, right? Mm-hmm. And so what this guy says, and I can already guess a direction that your next artifact that you have will go in, but
I did say they don't agree with each other.
It's interesting. Yeah, that's true. That's true. It's interesting, right? Because is there not truth there? Absolutely, there's truth there. And I also am going to take another step back and yes, guys, we are talking about politics. We are talking about government stuff. So don't be afraid of getting in these waters with us. But also, we are talking about Christian things. And if you're not a Christian, we still welcome you to be in this conversation.
Yeah,
right?
throw it in the chat right now, everybody. Are you a Christian nationalist? And if you are, you're going on blast on the internet right now. Everyone's going to know who you are. And then if you aren't a Christian nationalist, put it in the chat right now. Your church is going to know that you don't vote on the important things.
You are damned if you do and damned if you don't.
In other words, yep, you're always going to be wrong no matter what you say. Sorry,
yeah,
Tony,
and it's funny that we joke about that, but that's kind of a little bit of what I'm bringing to the table. It fits in that world, but it's sad but true. It's something where there is such a stigmatism that comes with politics, just in general, that even if you're a Christian or not, what's one of the three things you don't ever talk about when company is over? Politics. You know, it's one of the biggest one. The other one's religion, which we talk about all the time. And so just the idea that your religion and your politics should not coexist, they should not cross lines. It's interesting to me. I think there's truth to what he's saying, that we are called to be as close to Jesus Christ as we possibly can be. But then it makes me ask the next question of, well, like, does Jesus Christ never have any opinion whatsoever on the government around him and the people involved in that government and the decisions they make?
Does he?
And, that's a good question. Yeah, that's a great question.
I'm asking you, Tony.
I honestly think that if we're talking about quantitatively, it's not a lot. Qualitatively in principles, I think it's not absent from the Bible. I think it's present. But another argument can be made that top of my mind is if you are called to have this heart for Jesus and this heart for other people and loving your neighbor as you love yourself, well, what's one of the ways that we can tell someone is a Christian? What's one of the ways that we can tell someone's a good person? The fruit that comes out of what is in their heart, right? The actions. And is politics not just that, the actions that we do on behalf of society? So it can be argued either way.
Okay. Canaan, your response. You have,
actually,
you have 5
I'm
minutes.
going to sort of echo Tony a little bit. I think the guy, and it could be that he's driving home a point. It may not be that he's necessarily saying what he's saying almost. You know what I
Could be
mean?
a little out of context.
The beginning of the clip that I cut out was him saying, "Some people be saying," and then all the rest of the stuff he just said was just, it was like a.
So we
Got
made
him.
him look better.
Do you think people would do that? Like go on the internet and lie?
Oh, definitely not. That doesn't happen, and nobody would take anybody out of context for sure. No, I think, he could be just driving home the point. You need to have a spiritual foundation. You know what I mean? Because going straight to politics, right? A lot of people do. They go straight to politics and like, this is like what I'm going to be putting all of my my eggs into. You know what I mean? This is where my effort is going to go. And there's no super strong foundation or reason why they're doing all these different things. It's just like, because it's a thing to do. Some people, I went to school with a guy who was so into politics, he would come to school in a suit and tie with a briefcase because he's like, this is what Congress people do. And
That was not me. Just for clarity's sake, I was not that dork.
It was Tony. He's lying. He was there. He had the suit and tie and everything. But it's like, he came from a family that really cared at that time about politics. And so it was like, his foundation was, I care about politics, So I sort of like what he's saying on the one end of where he's like, hey, you should be caring about your relationship with God. Your foundation should be in understanding his word and his commands of what we're supposed to do as Christians. And then for me, I would say out of that, to your point, Tony, comes action. Now for him, he says like, it's a non-spiritual thing, voting. I sort of disagree with that. You know what I mean? Personally, I think it's a form of action, and it's a responsibility.
Can you give an example in your mind, if you think it's a responsibility, and if you think there can be even for a Christian spiritual mandate in some cases, to vote? Can you give an example of what you mean?
A spiritual mandate to be involved with the government?
Well, you said I disagree. I think it can be a spiritual responsibility to vote. And I'm assuming that underneath that line is in certain cases. Because probably, I doubt you would say it's a sin if you don't vote on your city council position.
Yeah,
Look,
definitely not.
I'm glad we made that really clear. If you don't vote, you are
That's
in
right.
sin.
That's right.
Dang.
And we are Christian nationalists now. And
That's
I'm going to
right.
go ahead. I'm
Just
going to
make it
take that
really clear.
soundbite. I'm going to take that soundbite, and I'm going to prove our point from a moment ago.
True it.
Tony's going on a YouTube short later today. See him on YouTube later today saying you're a sinner if you don't vote on, for councilwoman, whatever her face is.
Yeah, I don't know, Nate, to answer your question.
You can't think of an example in your head where you'd be like, for you. Okay.
Yeah.
For you.
Yeah.
Because obviously it's difficult in like a broad spectrum to say like, well, it's sin for you and sin for you. But for you, let's say there was an issue being voted on.
Yeah.
And you knew about the issue ahead of time. Is there an issue that could be voted on that you would think, if I don't do this, despite knowing that I have the ability to work to stop this, it would be wrong and God would hold me responsible for it?
Oh man, I mean, it comes a lot down to knowledge. You know what I mean? I mean, for a lot of my life, I didn't vote on anything at all. You know what I mean? Because I was ignorant of what was going on around me.
Sinner.
And so I do think it comes down to knowledge on the one part, but like I do think there's some form of spiritual responsibility if you have the knowledge to prevent something wrong and you don't do it. I think that could be sin for that person. That's sin. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Does that answer your question?
Well, that's what James says, right? To him who knows what to do and does not do it, to him that is sin.
Yeah.
So I'm asking you for like a specific example, because if you think theoretically, I think there could be an issue being voted on that if I didn't contribute to try to make that swing one way or the other, that it would be wrong of me.
Yeah, I hate to go deeply controversial so early here, but
I'm asking you to, though.
yeah,
It's like, I
look,
love it.
there's been tons of things that have gone on in our country that I think are moral issues. They're deeply moral issues. In fact, a lot of law deals with morality on some level or another, So, but I would say abortion, you know what I mean? Like right off the bat, I'm like,
Whoa, cancel the stream. Cancel the stream.
Turn it off quick.
Get this right out of
Turn
here.
it off quick.
I can't believe
Get
you
us out
said
of here. YouTube's gonna ban us.
Well, explain why you think that way real quick.
Yeah, look, I think that a lot of abortions happen because people do not know and understand what's really going on with small children. And I'm sorry if you can hear my daughter playing a loud speaker in my hallway. I can hear it clear as day, and I'm like, turn that thing off.
Turn it.
But there's a lot of people out of ignorance who will have an abortion, and they just don't know what's really going on with an unborn child. I would say it's an unborn child. And I think as a country, we have a responsibility, or at least I would say my job as a citizen is to protect people's basic human rights. And I would say, a fetus is a human, it's a person, and they have a right in our country to live because we have laws, that protect that. And so I would say for me, it would be a sin not to get involved with that, or not to cast my vote in, or at least do what I can do, to make sure that people are protected. So I think from that point of view, and actually I don't want to segue too quickly into the next clip, but I have a clip that I feel like is a pretty good segue into this.
Okay.
Nate, I'm interested to hear your perspective.
Well, I'll throw out a
specifically.
really, really quick bite. And
Yeah.
I think what you're saying, I agree with the essence of the idea.
Yeah.
That gentleman, I forget what his name was, the pastor that I showed the little clip of a moment ago. He was saying that politics are not spiritual. And I think if you take politics like an abstract, like the world of politics and the world of politicians and campaigning and speeches and elections and whatever else, then in some ways I agree with him. But the word politics just means policy that is being enforced. And
That's right.
so let's say the issue at hand was we are voting on whether to murder everyone over the age of 42. And if 51% of people vote yes, we're going to murder everyone over the age of 42.
Yeah. Do
Now
we
it's
have a spiritual responsibility to
I would say,
participate in
that vote's coming up, and it's going to happen. If the vote wins, I'm going to be out there. If there's any chance, because obviously that's so far out there,
Yeah,
right?
hypothetical.
How could we ever legalize murder? That'd be crazy. Now, to your point, if you believe that a fetus is an unborn child, then we have, for many, many years, legalized murder.
Yeah.
The question for a lot of people comes in, and not all people, but a lot of people comes in whether you say that's a person or not.
Yeah.
I think that it is, candidly, but that's where a big part of the debate comes from. Not for everyone. There are also many people who would say, I don't care. It is ultimately about the mother's rights, not the child's rights. And so even if the child is 2 minutes from being born, it's about the mother's rights. But I digress. What I'm saying is there is a line where the policy, which is going to be enforcing someone's morality or lack thereof. There's a line where it's okay, but that's spiritual though. You want to talk about what spiritual is? Spiritual just refers to the realm of things beyond the physical, and morality falls into that category. So I think politics, in that sense, is in many ways, by definition, spiritual. So I have to disagree with him. Now, I also have to agree with him in some other parts of it, in which there's a whole lot of the political world that is so far away from anything that a Christian should be caring about. Where's that line? Man, there's a whole lot of conversation left to be had. But I think if you can establish a hypothetical, in that situation, though, it would be something that I need to do as a follower of Jesus.
Yeah.
Then you say, oh, okay. Then at some point, politics is spiritual.
Yeah.
And once you've established that, the question is, where is the line where that begins?
Yeah.
Is it as extreme as like murder everyone over the age of 42? Is the line the issue of abortion? Is the line about how we take care of the marginalized, or how we protect the value of life, or so on and so forth? Where is that line? But for me, if you can draw a line somewhere definitively, then you go, okay, well then somewhere else is actually where it starts. Are you following what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
why I kind of pushed on that question.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I don't think the church is a government, should be a government entity, but the church is a political entity.
It sure is.
And I when I say that, I don't mean they're a government entity. I mean
Community.
the church is an entity that has policies.
Yeah.
Like Jesus laid down, and you don't like the word policies, and you don't like the word politics. I get it, sure. But it's a fancy way of saying how we do things.
Yep.
And the church does things the way Jesus said, here's how you should do things. So the church is a politic. Like, the body of Christ in itself is a politic. It just, that's all that word means, is a group of people who commit to living together, governed by a shared set of values and policies. Mm-hmm. So that's what the church is. But again, it's about that line, right? And I think so much of this revolves around allegiance. I agree, or I disagree with his fundamental point.
Yeah.
That it's two unrelated worlds. I think they are related worlds, but they're not the same world. It's just how the kingdom people, how Jesus people are living in this thing and then acting out the vision of Jesus in the world. So there's a line somewhere, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Getting into exactly where that line is tricky. Now, I want to hear. I want to see what you've brought to the table, because you said it connected.
Yeah, I'll quickly share. I'll set the stage a little bit. This is Charlie Kirk speaking to a church. This is a Christian church, and of course, before his death, God rest his soul. I listened to quite a bit of Charlie Kirk, but I never got a lot of bits about his view on why to get involved with politics or not. So this is a quick clip. Can you guys see this real quick?
Yes.
Just to make sure we can see it. All right, I'll just play it for about.
Joke around. I say that my day job is doing the second most important thing. The most important thing is spreading Jesus to people all across the country and the world. I do that as much as I can, but the second thing is making sure we could do the first thing. The second thing is making sure that churches don't get shut down arbitrarily. The second most important thing is to making sure that we can continue to have church and have Christian schools. And so as we look at what's happening into Tuesday, I want to share a couple scriptures with you. The first of which is Jeremiah 29:7. It says, "Seek the welfare of the nation that you are in, because your welfare is tied to your nation's welfare." Now, that word seek could also be an English word of demand or require, or go to your leaders and say you want it a certain way. It's a Hebrew word, I'm going to butcher the pronunciation of, dadrash, meaning that you want to require it for your own well-being. Now, that's a very clear teaching. That's the Lord speaking in Jeremiah.
All right, boys, what do you think?
Very good. Tony, I call you to the stand.
Yeah, Charlie Kirk, man, it's so funny how it's not funny, but how divisive someone like Charlie Kirk can be. And I feel like a lot of the times when someone says just a simple, well, have you actually listened to him? Have you actually taken the time to go and hear the full context of a response, the full understanding, instead of just trying to look for gotcha statements, And I think that there's a lot of quality things that he said. Without a doubt, the man was highly involved in the idea of a Christian being involved in society, in politics, right? And like we said before, it's a matter of like, can a Christian do that and still hold on to what matters first, right? And I'm not gonna go too far into what I have, but that's where my mind goes right away.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Look, I as I said a moment ago, I think that there is a line somewhere by which it becomes actually okay. We can agree that there's a point at which Christians or followers of Jesus should get involved in terms of voting and involved in what's going on in the government. There's a point where it's clear, it's like obvious. So where is that point? And could that point be down to the point of, or down to the line of like, I'm going to work in this sphere towards religious freedom. And I'm going to work in this sphere towards encouraging the kind of policies that will lead to happiness and liberty and whatever else. Mm-hmm. Now, how far do you take that line? That's where it really gets messy. Because once again, it's like, well, I think that everyone is going to be the most happy and liberated if they all wear a burqa and they read the Quran 3 times a day, or you know, just, we're talking about Christian nationalism. So it's like everyone has to pray to Yahweh. Like I don't care if you want to or not. You have to. Like this is a Christian nation and it's policy, and you're in trouble if you don't do that anymore. Is that where you should be aiming for? Like do we enforce the Christian religion? And like my big step back to that entire thing would be to say that's never worked at any point ever in history. And I don't think God has ever attempted to enforce people to have a relationship with him. You can look back at Israel, in which you have a very, very particular culture that God said, I'm offering you the chance to be my people, my kingdom of priests. And if you will do that, if you want to do that, if you agree, that is going to mean keeping your end of the bargain.
Yeah.
And their end of the bargain was a very particular set of things. But it was a voluntary thing that they agreed upon and stepped into. After that whole first generation in Exodus, at Sinai, in Exodus 20, agreed to that, and then betrayed it, and then God didn't give up on them and went with them, and so on and so forth, and there's all the back and forth until they finally get to the promised land. There was an entirely new generation. Mm-hmm. And Joshua, with that new generation, he said, all right, do you guys want to do this thing? Like, let's recommit ourselves to the covenant or not. And they did. They did do that. There was no, let's purge the enemy and force them to be Israelites. Like, let's conquer, and now you're going to be assimilated into our religion. And any case of that in the Bible or in history doesn't work. Doesn't work out. I think, as it turns out, like fundamental to what I believe God wants from human beings is agency.
Yeah.
Or is rooted in free choice. In other words, we talk about a relationship with God that's the term that gets thrown around in church today. I think like fundamental to that, the kind of relationship God wants with us is free choice. And the moment that it is forced, it ceases to be the kind of relationship God wants with us in the first place. So yeah. I think a Christian nation, the most way you could have a Christian nation would be to set up laws such that people have the freedom to choose and that life is protected. I think the moment you start to enforce all of the agency parts of it and the allegiance to Yahweh parts of it, and it's everything involved in that sphere of this whole conversation, I think you're going up an impossible stream. It's never worked. I don't think it's ever going to work.
Well, I think if you look at our Constitution and our Bill of Rights, it seems like what you're saying is exactly what they were coming at it from, the perspective.
Life, liberty,
right?
The pursuit of happiness.
Basically allowing people to have a choice, but also to have some rights. Now, the rights, the funny part is the rights, you'd have to look at them and go like, okay, there's some moral basis for this Bill of Rights, and the moral basis, you had, I don't know how many signers there were, but it was like 98% of the signers of the Declaration of Independence were monotheistic. 100% of them were monotheistic. It was like 98% of them were on some level Christian. But, they're clearly influenced by Christianity. Many of the rights that we have today in this country. So,
anyone who studied John Locke, who is the guy who's responsible for the philosophy that the majority of our Constitution is built on, knows that guy learned all his stuff directly from extracting principles from those places where God is helping establish a nation of people who have agreed to be his kingdom of priests and his nation. So yeah, I think I agree with you.
Well, cool. All right, what else we got?
Well, cool.
Tony, you got something for us?
Yeah, I mean, all of this is like you said early on, Nate, there's so much that you can jump into. There's so many aspects here, and it's like my brain is running a million miles a minute. But like for me, this hits on a lot of principles that I enjoy talking about on this podcast, and we've talked about before. But one of my favorite things about Christianity in general, what I would make an argument that is makes Christianity as a religion a very different type of religion than honestly any other religion out there. And you know, you're talking about like Islam, and there are a lot of governments that are ran on Islamic principles. And like once more, intentions aren't the bad thing there, because these are people who truly believe that following this way of life is going to be the right way, and it's what they should do. And not only it's what they should do, it's what everyone around them should do. So let's make that happen. And that's where that slippery slope is. And to get what the picture I'm trying to paint for Christianity is an internal religion. It's not external. In other words, it's an internal government. It's not an external government. So that's something like your guy said in the beginning. You know, really, I feel like he was raging against, and this is an aspect that I agree with him on, is that Christianity is not called to rule people in an external way that says this is how life should be, so do it. It just does not work. That's no longer Christianity, right? And I think that's exactly where the slippery slope in politics is, because, and once more, this is coming from someone with a steep background in politics. Unfortunately, for you to be successful in politics, there's a level that you cannot be idealistic. I'm not saying that right.
Idealistic.
Idealistic. Thank you. You have to be pragmatic, right? And what I mean by that is, especially when it comes to maybe the once every 4 years that someone votes in a general election, and really anyone who can really understand that if I don't vote for one of these two people, then how much does my vote really matter, right? At the end of the day, there's this pill that you have to swallow of I am voting for the lesser of two evils. And that can be a very hard thing for a Christian to swallow, honestly. Because it's like, why should I compromise what I know is right? Why should I compromise what I know we should be doing? This person is not representative of what I know Christianity to be. So I can't, with my own clear conscience, vote for them. And that's why politics is messy, specifically American politics, right? And the system that we have. But once more, Christianity is about that, what you said, Canaan, in the beginning, having the foundation, having those internal principles that makes me who I am. But the moment we start letting it go beyond that, that's when problems happen. So I can segue a little bit to what mine are, but that's my brain's all over the place, but I love this topic.
Yeah, I have some questions that I want to push you guys on. But Tony, I don't want to take away from, because this would be like your chance to share what you brought, because we're already at 45 minutes.
We are
somehow.
And I don't have a video clip, right? And because really for me, there's a lot of there's like 4 or 5 different ideas that I was bouncing around for this topic. And the one that I'm really going to harp on, it comes from Timothy Keller, right? He's Nate probably could explain it better than me, but he wrote a book, very well known, about he's a Christian apologist, and he has this idea. Yeah, I'm sorry, he passed away in like a couple of years ago, right? 2023. Yeah. But yeah, he had this idea that he was really getting across that, in my opinion, has a lot to do with politics, right? And it's the concept of, what is your real religion, right? What are you really worshiping? And this is where it gets messy. And let me go to the specific quote that I have, because for me, there is a question of should I, as a Christian, should I be involved in politics and to what level, right? But then there's a whole nother level to that, which I think is even more important. And the reason why people don't get involved is because they're afraid of this next level. And that really is the cultural divide in America. That really is the political left and the political right, and which one is truly Christian. It's a hard question to answer, right? And so he has this quote. Let me pull it up. He has this quote that basically says, talking about the idea that God has to challenge you. Like there needs to be aspects of God that really is beyond you and really does make you wrestle with truths that you may or may not be accepting at that time, right? And just to sum, it's a very long quote, but I'm going to sum up real quick. The very bottom line is, if your God that you worship never disagrees with you, then you might just be worshiping an idolized version of yourself. And so I kind of changed the words of that a little bit, give me some leeway here. But talking about like your political party, right? What concerns me here is how tribalized things have gotten in politics. How polarized that if you don't believe what I believe, then you are the enemy. You are of the enemy, especially talking about in Christian circles. And I just can't even begin to fathom why you can support X, Y, and Z, no matter which side of that aisle. And if you do, don't even bother to talk to me, right? We've had conversations about this recently, you know? And so for me, it's like your faith should be influencing your views, not the other way around. Like if your faith never challenges your political party, then you're not worshiping God, you're worshiping that party or that candidate or that set of ideas.
That makes sense.
You know what I mean?
I like that a lot. I like that a lot, especially applied to the conversation of political party. And the nice rule of thumb that if you find yourself agreeing with everything, like your views align perfectly or very closely with the rest of the political party, probably those same views do not align in all ways with what God thinks and the way God sees things.
It's at least a red flag, honestly.
A really big red flag. And that's I think that's super true on both sides of the fence. And it's why I try not to call myself anything. I evaluate people not by their party, but by what they believe. And if I'm going to be voting, then I really know what the people I'm voting for actually stand for, rather than who their allegiance lies with or whatever else. Yeah, that's good. That's super good.
Yeah, I know there was a lot of information there, Canaan, so no worries if you disagree with all of it.
I'm sunk. No, I love that. I really do. I like that a lot. It's a great litmus test. Did I say that right? It's a great litmus test to see, what are you really following? What are you really worshiping? And I think a lot of people would, if they applied that thought process to their belief system, they would come up short. They would come up wanting, So I think it's really good, man. I like it.
Yeah, and something else that I can't stress enough, because I feel like this might be the first topic that we've come this close to politics, right? And thank you guys for being a part of this conversation. Hopefully we haven't pissed you off and scared you away by now or made you run out the door angry. But regardless, like that's the number one thing, like Charlie Kirk was saying, the number one thing for him is to spread the gospel. The number two thing is to make sure we can spread the gospel, right? I like that idea because for me, polarization and making these tribes politically separate you. Literally, they separate you from your neighbor, right? And I have neighbors that I do not like. All right, I'm taking this very down. We like to
Tony's
land the
neighbors
plane.
in the chat. He's like,
sorry,
what?
Neighbors. We're trying to land the plane.
You said we were friends.
He's not talking about me, right?
The other neighbor.
Yeah, the other one. There's lots of neighbors.
But it's like, even though I don't Okay, if I don't like that neighbor and I choose to act on specific instincts that I feel are right, that at the end of the day, I can take an objective step back and identify that that's not Christian. The principles that I would be operating out of would not be Christian principles. Then it's like I'm never going to get an opportunity to spread the gospel with that neighbor. And I'm not talking about, having a conversation with them about, hey, did you know Jesus loves you and I don't want you to die and go to hell. I'm not talking about Christianese. I'm talking about like being an actual influence on that person's life because of who I am, because of how I hold myself, how I interact with people, how I handle conflict, how I handle people I don't like, my enemies. And that those Christian principles should be what help you be those should be the glasses you put on when you are looking at politics. And I would say that if you're wearing those glasses, to some degree, you're going to see people on the left who are absolutely right about what they're talking about trying to help the people around them, about reaching out and not turning a blind eye, about the marginalized, about the immigrant. And then you're going to see people on the right who are not crazy just because they really believe that this is a baby's life. This really is something that we believe God is calling us to have something holy about it. And that's my number one thing about politics. How can we as Christians be involved in politics but not make politics our religion?
Yeah. 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 You know, we already have to start winding down here. It's crazy because that was really, really fast. But I want to throw something else out here as we head towards the end. I think all three of us and the vast majority of like Jesus following, like feet to the ground Jesus followers that I know would agree that supreme allegiance to the state is incompatible with supreme allegiance to Jesus.
Yeah.
But there we go. That your allegiance to Jesus as your rabbi, savior, God, king, very, very well may be at odds with what the state is doing and saying and even mandating at different points in history. This was the case for the people of Israel in the Old Testament at various points.
Yeah.
This was the case for the people that Jesus was speaking to in the first century, and then the followers of Jesus underneath the Roman Empire. This was the case for them. So I think we all agree with that. What I want to ask is a balancing concept. Do you guys think that it is good for a follower of Jesus to, in whatever country they're in, to wish for and pray for and even work towards the well-being of their country?
I'm gonna say yes, absolutely. And the
Why would you say something
principle?
so controversial?
I know, right? So controversial. The reason that I stand on there is it's whatever you would call the opposite of spiritual apathy, right? There's an idea that, hey, yeah, I'm a Christian. Hey, I believe in Jesus died for my sins and I'm going to go to heaven and all these things that I was raised in the Christian church to believe. Yeah, I check those boxes, right? But then on deeper reflection, it's like, how deep do I go? How engaged do I get? How intentional do I get? Starting first and foremost with myself, right? Or do I not engage? Do I stay apathetic? Do I stay comfortable in my box that I enjoy? I check all the boxes. I'm good. I don't need to get outside this comfort zone. I would make a very strong argument that idea for yourself, you not getting outside of your box of trying to grow your discipleship, grow your understanding, grow what I would argue the most important thing, your character more and more over years, then all you're doing is being apathetic to Jesus.
Yep.
And Jesus was not apathetic up to anyone. And so, yeah, I think that it starts with us. Any good politics should start with you internally and then because of this internal Christianity that I have, I can have fruit, or I should have fruit externally, because that fruit will grow.
Yeah, I love the way that you asked that question, Nate, because it frames it in such a way where you're like, duh, of course
Well,
I
I
should.
mean-
And I mean, it does. I mean, it frames it in such a way where you go like, okay, well, like if I'm not caring about the well-being of my neighbor,
Yeah.
enemy, non-enemy, alike, my country, the people around me, and it extends beyond just my country. But if I'm not caring about the well-being of those people, I'm missing like one of the central premises of our faith as Christians.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so I really like the way that you asked that, because it should challenge people. I think it should challenge us to saying, do I care? Do I actually care about the people, the well-being of the people around me? And if it's my literal neighbor that I can throw a rock and hit their house, or if it's somebody in Arkansas, I don't know anybody
Those
from Arkansas.
Arkansasians, I don't even know how to say their name.
What's the least known state? Rhode Island? I don't know.
Rhode Island's up there.
It's up there. If we don't care about the well-being of those people, you're right, Tony. It's apathy. You know what I mean? And we're not called to apathy. We're called to caring. We're called to
action.
loving our neighbor.
Yeah.
And so that should spur action. It's in fact, love is action, right? It's not a feeling that you get. It is an action. And so I think from that perspective, we ought to care whether we live here. It's almost like remove the term nationalist. You know what I mean? Let's just say, a Christian is called to caring about the well-being of their neighbor, and their neighbor extends far beyond borders. Now you get into law and policy, right? And then you start, and selfishness enters the picture. And so you have to ask the question, is this law practical? You know what I mean? Does it protect?
It gets dicey.
That's a whole nother question. It's a whole nother rabbit hole that maybe one day we should or shouldn't go down. But at the end of the day, we should care about our neighbor. And if we're not, we're missing something big there. And that's got a lot to do with policy. A policy extends to our neighbor. Not, to your point, Nate, that doesn't mean that we need to, everybody should be praying. We shouldn't make policy about praying to God, right? But, it does affect our neighbor. Policy affects our neighbor big time,
Yeah, because there's a danger there, right? With like, if there's a danger when we put the American flag over the cross. And it's very easy for a Christian to slip into that, especially if that's what you were raised in, especially if that's all you know, and especially if that's what you identify with being a good Christian. If you come at it from an external first, you miss the heart of it, right? And then the other thing I would say is like, how we're talking about our neighbor, right? How can you love your neighbor when you're convinced that they are trying to destroy your country that you love? And that's what I'm saying. Like, Christian nationalism can easily put us into this tribalism that, oh man, that person is just so wrong.
Yep.
That there's no more option of being able to love them and want the highest good for them.
Yeah.
One of the reasons I bring the question up is because I think on top of the extrapolating conclusions that you guys bring out of the way of Jesus too. Yeah, it makes perfect sense that you should love your neighbor and by extension of that, wish for the well-being of the world around you. I think there's actually biblical basis for working towards the well-being of your nation. And we'll wrap up with this idea. But for those of you, you guys are familiar with the Old Testament, but for those of you out there who have read the Old Testament, there's a moment in Jewish history where they have gone so off the deep end and rebelled against Yahweh in so many ways that finally God takes his hands of protection off of them, and they end up dragged off into exile, into Babylon, where they're effectively second-class citizen isn't the word. They're like one step above slaves, and arguably slaves, but they're captives in a foreign nation. And so in the ancient world, if you're a conquered people group, there's two basic options. You either violently rebel, like you try to overthrow your captives, and they're in Babylon. And Babylon is It is the biblical idea for everything that's wrong with a human government, like violent propaganda, glorification of wealth and king, and just everything that is the absolute opposite of what, like, before there was Rome, there was Babylon, right? Before there was Greece and Persia, there was Babylon. And it's like, it is the anti-Israel. It is the what God wants out of a kingdom. Even before anything else, there was Babel, which is Babylon. It was the establishment of the anti-Yahweh kingdom. So you either violently rebel, like you fight to the death, try to overthrow your captors, or you assimilate. You give up your identity, and you just become part of the kingdom you were captured into. Jeremiah writes a letter, because Jeremiah is not in Babylon yet. He's writing to the first wave and second wave of people that were brought out of Jerusalem and out of Judah into Babylon. And he writes a letter to them. This is in Jeremiah chapter 29, where he tells them not to rebel and not to assimilate. He says, what I want you to do, and this is God's words to you, is get comfortable, build houses, plant gardens, and actively seek the shalom of Babylon. And that word shalom it's peace, but it's also it's wholeness, it's prosperity, it's well-being. Seek the shalom of Babylon. And Jeremiah tells them, as Babylon prospers, you will prosper.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's crazy, because the whole arc of the story is Babylon is going to fall, because it is the anti-everything Yahweh. Like, that is, the people are asking, when's it going to fall? When's it going to fall? But God's words through Jeremiah to the people are, seek the shalom of this kingdom. America is no Babylon. I don't care who you are. It is no Babylon. It's got its Babylonian ideas, for sure. But we have so much to be grateful for. We are free people, and we're free to worship Yahweh. We're not being burned alive for worshiping Yahweh, because some of them were. Like, this is the story of Daniel is in this exact context, right? We're not being thrown to the lions for worshiping Yahweh. The story of Daniel is in this exact context. And in spite of all that, they were called to seek the shalom of Babylon. So seek the shalom of America if you're an American. Seek the shalom of your nation. Does that mean it has your highest allegiance? Never, right? Never.
That's right.
But seeking for the prosperity and well-being of your nation is a God-given mandate to his people. So there we go. That's my final thought. Guys, this has been a good conversation. I was not looking forward to tackling this because this is hard. This is hard stuff.
It is. These are the kind of conversations I love. Like, and having more of these kind of, and this is something I know we keep bringing up Charlie Kirk, Canaan. I think that was a great video that you brought in, but that's something that even though I don't agree with every single thing that he has to say, but man, the willingness to engage in these kind of conversations with people from a point of view that's not, I want to attack you, I want to cut you down, I'm just waiting for my turn to cut your legs out from underneath you. You know, we need more conversations like this. And so, yeah, if you're live watching this, we really appreciate it. And if you're not live, we really appreciate any comments, any interactions. Like, absolutely don't hesitate to reach out to those who have reached out in the past. We appreciate that. Thank you very much for being a part of this conversation.
Yep. Yeah, put it up in the comments. What are your guys' thoughts on this whole thing? Where's the nuance for you? Which one of us three do you most want to cancel after this conversation? Guys, thanks again for an incredible conversation. That was a lot of fun, if difficult. But for all of you guys out there that are wrestling with stuff like this or whatever else, until next time, take it easy. That's the outro. Cue the music. Take it easy.